As time passed, religion got corrupt, superstitious and dogmatic, and society got corrupt with stereotypes. It reached a certain critical mass, and there was an uproar against this foolishness of organized religions, against the dogma, and against all the negative stereotypes. And this was and is a correct protest. But together with the throwing out of the malefic stereotypes, dogma, and superstition, humanity, or not even humanity, but let's say this wave of modern protest of a certain wish to reform, which is a very good wish, has thrown away also the archetypes and the spiritual truth which is hidden in just about any religion. This was in short, now in detail. So indeed, stereotypes have they were at the cognitive heart of the suppression of women, the suppression of different races, the suppression of Jews, as I was born Jewish, and it stood, if it wasn't for this cognitive, superficial and incorrect belief that if somebody belongs to a particular race, gender, then they should have less rights, less opportunities, and so forth, and they should be treated in a negative way because of that, very bad. And the uproar against the stereotypes, very good. And the fact that they are less strong now in society than they were 100, 200 years ago, very good. But with the stereotypes, we threw away the archetypes. We didn't realize this whole reform movement, that there are two things. Yeah? Very beautifully described in the writings of Jung and all the followers of Jung. They are elevated archetypes which are not limited stereotypes. They are a hidden potential reality which was helpful for thousands of years, and maybe more than that, to help us navigate the inner world. You go to a traditional doctor, Chinese, Indian, you name it, and they will tell you something about the elements. Your fire is a little bit like that. The air inside of you is a little bit disturbed. These are archetypical energies, and if you understand it correctly, and the reason why Chinese and Indian medicine, Ayurveda, and all sorts of alternative medicines, everything that comes out of it, yeah, from shiatsu to yoga and all that, they are so popular, is because they work, is because we have inner archetypes, and it's very good to preserve them, including the elevated and harmonious, free, masculine and feminine archetypes that we have inside. Yeah? A feminine fire archetype is the heroine. A masculine fire archetype is the hero. You see, if it wasn't for the archetype of the peaceful warrior, the warrior that is willing to quote Mahatma Gandhi, to take a blow but not to give a blow, is willing to die for what they believe in but not to kill for what they believe in. If it wasn't for the contemplation and the realization of that archetype through Mahatma Gandhi, without that archetype, Mahatma Gandhi could not do what he did, and then his followers, Martin Luther King, Dalai Lama, and Nelson Mandela, would also not be able to do what they did. So if we lose the archetypes with all the stereotypes, we lose all our Gandhis and all our Nelson Mandelas and all our peaceful warriors if we throw away the archetypes as well. So archetypes are very important to preserve. because they are a source of inner energy. When we come to navigate in the inner world, we need to rely also very much on thousands and thousands of years of humanity looking within. And then with a kind of natural selection, a lot of the ideas which were preserved pretty well throughout time, they are things that people could relate to in their inner world, and this is something we should definitely preserve from the old world. This is ancient, meaningful knowledge. Now, religion has degenerated into a political institute just about anywhere. Francis did not allow Franciscans to own anything. And having that life of great freedom and renunciation, they became spiritual giants. If you would give a Franciscan a piece of bread, he would go and clean your house, so he doesn't work for free. But he doesn't own money. And they lived a very difficult physical life, but a very exalted spiritual life because of this great discipline and sacrifice of individual property, as it is done with the sadhus in India for millennia, and that's why they are so, those who do it correctly, they really grow spiritually. Don't try this at home if you're not ready. But one generation it took. So Franciscans became the superstars of spirituality throughout Europe. In one generation, when Francis was alive, it was already spreading to Germany, and Anthony of Padua came from Portugal and spread throughout Europe. And everybody knew the other monks are not as authentic, not as powerful. And so people said, look, we really want to donate money to the Franciscans because they are the real ones. And the Franciscans, when Francis was alive, was like, no, we take no money. And then Francis passed away. And then his followers, and Elias mainly, who was already, when Francis was alive, had a different direction for the movement, said, okay, no, the individual cannot own, but the monastery can own. And in one generation, if you look at the references, to quote Professor Harari, if you look at the references of historical references 30 years, 50 years after Francis passed away, they say the Franciscans, they are the most corrupt, the most fat, and they lost their flair. And this is what happens. Spiritual movements begin with a bang. The Prophet, the Christ, the Buddha. And they have a charisma because they discovered something inside that is bigger than life and death. And when you look at them and when you read their scriptures, if your heart is open, all the different Lao Tzus and whatever, you're like, this is better than anything else. This is eternal, everything else is passing. And then they create a tremendous attraction. Because indeed, they did discover something tremendous. And then the tremendous interest that appears creates in time politics, because it's a huge social power. They have so many followers. Yeah, before the social media, they had physical followers, and that means resources. And then after the first, the second, Christianity, for example, because it was persecuted, remained pure for a few centuries, and then got institutionalized, the Roman Empire, and gradually, not so quickly, it had a few good centuries, but gradually gains power, money, and then the people that are leading it are less and less spiritual and more political. And this is a generalized, sad situation. So the rejection of the corrupt religious institute, when it is corrupt, and not all religious, by far, not all religious institutes in today's world are corrupt, there are many pure ones, but the rejection of the corruption of religious institute is very true, and they deserve to be exposed. And together with that, the founders of these traditions, they would come with a truth, and in time, the truth would get systemized into a caricature, into something embarrassingly superstitious, not related to the truth. The ones, the followers, Christ there, with the money changers in the temple, making a revolution, breaking. Yeah, do not do that. Don't make business with religion. Coming with the truth, shattering the old institute, and then after a while the institute appears, shattering the superficial beliefs. Oh, we should do this, and we should follow the formalism of religion, the formalism of the Shabbat, and whatever. Shatter that. And Buddha had to shatter the superficial beliefs that were there, the superstitious belief. But then in time, this becomes very popular, and the religion, or the spiritual truth, is brought down to a kind of stagnant, superstitious religion. And all sorts of very superstitious belief and stereotypical beliefs get stuck through the decades and centuries on the religions, and then it's very good to shatter them away. The earth, the sun does not revolve around the earth, and this is not from Christianity, it's from Aristotle, but Christianity somehow adapted Aristotle at one point, and it's very good to shatter and to dissolve the very superficial superstitions. Very good. And science has come with Karl Popper and this belief, or this, let's say, this algorithm where what we take as scientific is a scientific experiment that can be repeated by anyone, anywhere, and then we consider that truth. Excellent philosophy, and then this is like the philosophy of science, and from this one excellent idea, Popper, there came this scientific revolution, and we could throw away a lot of superstition, which made science advance very, 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 very quick. There was a shift in the cognition. Brilliant, wonderful scientific discoveries, good, many, many good things happened through that. But science has become now the same. Science revealed something, and it became a political institute. And there's this whole current of scientism now. Now, Popper's understanding is very true for things which are externally measurable. And then science says, well, if we cannot measure it in a scientific way, that is, the experiment can be repeated, then we discard it as non-existent. And this is a very irrational and non-scientific leap. Why wouldn't there be things that science does not have yet tools to measure? And then the inner experience of consciousness, of the soul, of the spirit, became discarded by science. Some of their very extreme scientism, they don't say mind, they don't say consciousness, they don't say brain. They say we are human robots, because science became the new church, the new religious institute with a narrow scientism, and because it cannot measure properly the inner world, and I'm a psychologist, and these questionnaires and whatever, they measure just something of the surface with the depth of the inner world that needs to be explored individually and not collectively, at least for now, because these are the tools that we have. That has been discarded. And then we stripped. We took away the superstition, the dogma of religion, we took away stereotype, we dissolved, and let's say, or at least reduced a lot of these negative things, but we also took knowledge of thousands and thousands of years about the inner world, and we accidentally, stupidly, have discarded that. and then the knowledge which gives meaning to life, which gives a balanced emotional life, which gives a harmonious couple relationship, a harmonious and moral way of treating others, which humanity has built for thousands of years, we have discarded that. And hence the levels of depression, of anxiety, of the feeling that life has no meaning, and the exteriorization of consciousness with the screen all the time. Because when consciousness goes to the inner world, it is unpleasant because it is not arranged, it is not cleaned, because we lost the knowledge of meditation, prayer, contemplation, connection with nature, deep intimacy, deep human connection, which was known before, and of course, which is not absolutely known. We can continue developing it, but we have dropped it. And the invitation that we are sending out here is to explore the inner world in a scientific way, as this very wonderful movement now, 450 people with PhD and up, university professors, doctors all over the world, 450 of them have signed this post-materialistic science, this petition of post-materialistic science, which is for the scientific method of exploration, but against scientism, and with a clear request, a clear call to study consciousness. Because every research, and there's a lot of research, and I'll just mention here Brenda Dune and Robert John with the research of intention, clearly scientifically significant. Ian Stevenson and past lives. 3,000 cases, 30 years, a whole research there, University of Virginia, very clear, rigid scientific results. Pim van Lommel, Sabom, and Robert Moody with their research of near-death experience. Andy Newberg with the experience of altered states of consciousness and states of enlightenment on the brain. All these things put together, you will see that actually we know quite a lot about the inner world and about consciousness, but this remains in the margin of science, because science has a scientism, and it says no, human beings are made of matter because this is the scientific way of thinking, and it's not. So the invitation is to bring an integration of this vast knowledge of the inner world that was gathered through millennia in the different religions and spiritual movements and alchemy. Very wise people for many thousands of years that knew also the archetypes, but to cast away the stereotypes and remain with the pure archetypes, and to bring the knowledge of spirituality and to verify it in a scientific way, either through experiments or inwardly, by being very honest and very scientific in the way that we look at ourselves, and sharing in this objective way and discovering the spiritual truth as a direct experience and not as an automatic and dry response to a dogma. Not to follow a dogma, but not to dismiss our direct experience, because this is the beginning of all process of exploration. It is always beginning and ending with a direct experience. And in this way, bringing a synthesis of the world of free thought, of science, and the archetypical and spiritual wisdom of millennia, bringing a synthesis of the new and the old. Now this is a very polarizing subject, and I'm sure you have an opinion, and please leave it in the comments below. If you like this video and want to learn more about Tantra, about yoga, about psychology, emotional healing, lives of saints and the scriptures,
then hit the bell, like, subscribe, and you'll never miss an upload. Thank you so much.